Hello, hunting family. Welcome to Tracks and Tackle, the podcast where we explore the wonders of the wilderness and the thrill of the hunt, along with the joys of fishing. I'm your host, the Arrow Eagle, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the Hollywood Horse. Today, we want to take an opportunity to introduce ourselves to you and share our passion for the great outdoors. So without further ado, let's dive in.
Thanks, Air Eagle. I am so thrilled to be part of this exciting journey with you and our new hunting family, and just share our love for nature and the outdoors, and to just share that with those around us. So this new platform gives us a wider selection of how we get it out there. Let's start off by sharing some of our backgrounds and kind of what led us to creating this podcast. So how did your love for hunting and the outdoors begin, Air Eagle?
Well, you know this, but I was born into a family of outdoorsmen, following my dad's footsteps and my older brother. They've taught me what I know about the outdoors. And so ever since I was a young boy, even before I was old enough to hunt, I was practicing shooting my bow. Anytime that they were doing outdoorsy type stuff, I'd want to be involved. I'd want to tag along. And so I think like every moment's a teaching moment, and I what's really important to me is the next generation. Like I love seeing like fathers teach their sons and passing on the hunting legacy. So when I see that, I think it's really important. And I think like nowadays there's less and less kids getting outdoors, even if they don't hunt or fish. They're they're holed up in the bedroom playing video games and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to pass on knowledge. And so I get excited when there's, young teenagers that are excited about hunting and, they have the time to invest in it, but maybe they don't have that role model or that father figure in their life to pass on the knowledge like I received and you as well, as we grew up. So when you have that younger generation that's interested, we want to do shows like this that will allow us to pass on knowledge, basic understanding. I'm by no means am I an expert on hunting and outdoors, but the reality is I've been around this all my life. I do it for fun and the pleasure of enjoying nature and being outside. So I got started because I was born into it. Like they say, I didn't choose this life chose me. But yeah, we're doing the podcast because we want to create a family, a community of people that are just like us. Blue collar guys, we both work 40 hours a week. We all have our jobs, but whenever every chance we get, we want to be outdoors. And so that's what it's about for me. It's what led me to start recording. I'm thinking about like the first time that I actually started recording a deer with a cell phone, just sitting in my stand. The deer wasn't big enough to shoot, and I started recording it versus, harvesting that animal, and something clicked. It's like, this is really fun.
Yeah, we've definitely come a long way.
Yeah. So that's where it started for me. I love the experience of being outside. I'd rather be outdoors than indoors. And what's really important to me is seeing the next generation embrace that versus what we see too much of too often. You just see kids that they don't have that experience. They're missing out on something that we had, as we grew up. So
yeah, it's almost a lost art, just the way society is going, and we've become more and more dependent on going to the grocery store and others providing for us. So I think it's
definitely
a lost art, and it's very important to just be self-sufficient. So it's something, as I'm been getting older and more involved with hunting and fishing, is knowing that, if the world falls apart, I don't need to go to a grocery store. I can hoof it out to the top of the woods, or crawl through some briars to get to that honey hole by the stream. But just being independent. But yeah, as a kid, I can remember, going out in the cold for a few hours. It sucked. I just wanted to survive and outlast. That Dad would walk down with his headlamp and get me out. So I could say, Dad, I did it. It was
yeah, right.
more so about impressing him rather than doing it for myself. But I made plenty of walks of shame, or I was just bored, so I headed down the hill. But as I'm getting older and older and kind of seeing the process rather than just the kill, it's more about filling up the freezer and being a provider.
Well, your dad, he's poured a lot of his hunting knowledge into my life, and a lot of what I know is because of what he's taught me. And I think of whenever I first started hunting, if you ask him, he'll tell you it was the best hunting land this side of the Mississippi.
He's
That
filled with stories.
Yeah, definitely. He would tell you that there's a deer behind every tree, and I know, just like what you were saying about sitting out in the cold and just trying to brave it out. I would get cold, and I wouldn't sit long enough to see the deer. And so what I would end up doing is, we would be out in the middle of nowhere, acres upon acres, hundreds of acres of woods, and we'd go out and we would camp. And your dad would go and he would set me in a place and tell me just to sit still, and the deer would come through, and I would get cold. And so what I would do is to warm up, I would just get up and I would start walking like logging roads and things like that. And it's really interesting because even doing that as a young guy, I saw deer. And I think that's key for like young people getting interested, whether it's fishing or whether it's hunting. Like if you go out and you fish all day and you don't catch anything, I enjoy that now. Like I don't mind. But when you're young, if you're seeing deer, if you're catching fish, you get hooked.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the love of this. What really got you started? Your love of hunting?
So the love of hunting kind of as I tied in, just as a youth, just getting outside the house, the part of the family being, part of that culture. And as I've grown older and matured, I think what I realize is, we have a tradition every year for rifle opener and archery during the rut. We go for a week, but just some of the memories with family made in that tiny little cabin. We definitely had some good laughs there, and it could be something small such as our dice game or the cards, or watching the Western before bed if the service allows it. But I guess just kind of getting out there and having those memorial hunts, the memorable hunts of when you kind of struck out, you're on your last straw, and one kind of comes through the brush when you're not expecting it. You can lay that trigger down and make it take a dirt nap. But just how rewarding the sport is kind of what got me hooked in the hunting. And I'm this year more than ever. I'm ready to get out there. I'm fired up. Got my bow out. I've been practicing with that. I'm about to go to one of these 3D techno hunts, shoot the screen for a little bit.
They're fun.
Yeah, a big thing for me too is a personal goal. I haven't got one with my compound yet. As a kid, you talked a little bit about those mistakes about being cold and going for a walk. Well,
Right.
mine would always be I'd be antsy and I'd rush a shot on. There's definitely a couple I should have laid down, but regardless, I never got one at the compound. And my grandfather, he was getting a little bit older, so he ended up handing me down his crossbow, and that's a lot more easier, and you're more confident when you squeeze the trigger on it that you're gonna have meat on the ground versus
Sure.
saying a prayer before you let that arrow go from the compound. So big goal is just to get out there and check that off the list that, hey, I did it.
Yeah, you're about to trigger the infamous crossbow versus compound bow debate.
Yeah, we
that
better hush hush.
many hunters have. We all have our preferences, and personally, I love shooting the compound. I look at the crossbow and I see how it's changed the industry, and so whenever they first came out, to me it was like, well, that's just you might as well hunt a muzzleloader. It's a single shot rifle, sort of thing. But I see how the crossbow has impacted the up and coming generation. It's made it easier for them to embrace the outdoor lifestyle, and so I'm okay with it. I think that anything that we can do in the sport to encourage a next generation to embrace it, enjoy it, and fully live the outdoor lifestyle, I think that it's worth the look, at least to take a look at those type of things. So
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I toss it in my mind back and forth because when I'm looking at the bunk bed, figuring out, am I going to take the compound out? Or am I going to take the crossbow?
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly battling. Like, do I want more of the challenge or more of a rewarding, harvest if I get one, or do I want easy? And I think it depends on the season whether you have luck early or not. But I'm not here to say I'm no expert. I wouldn't like to say I'm an amateur. I'm a healthy in between. I got my fair share of deer. At the end of the day, I think it's just rewarding to know, when you're cooking back straps, with your side, whether it's, some vegetables and rice or macaroni, just to know, like, hey, I'm putting food on the table for the family.
Yeah, I think like that's another part of this aspect of outdoor living, harvesting your own food, the cooking the meal and actually, harvesting it's one part, but then finding enjoyment in recipes. I did not cook growing up. I had an older sister. My mom was a good cook. My grandmother was a good cook. My wife is an excellent cook. I don't do a lot of cooking, but when it comes to deer meat, when it comes to venison or fish and wild gamey types of foods, I really love like making jerky, making the bologna, and finding recipes for that venison that and sharing that with other people because there are so many people that don't eat venison, and it's like opening up a new world for them.
Just keep your steak simple. Don't overcook it. Garlic, salt, pepper, Montreal steak season. Y'all can thank me later.
All right. Well, hey, let's just dive into a few questions here
Yeah.
and have a short conversation. I was wondering if you can maybe share one of your most memorable outdoor adventures with us and what made it so special.
Ooh, that's a tough one because each are almost memorable in their own sense. I guess where to start is where the hunting started for me. So, my very first kill, we're up in our cabin in tippy top of the mountain. It's the weather up there is always bipolar. One side of the mountain will be very windy, it'll be misting or foggy, and the other side the sun will be poking out, and you almost want to have shorts and a tank top on. But as a kid, we talked about this, being cold. So I'm sitting there just trying to make my old man proud, toughing it out. And I still do it, to be honest. Don't tell anybody, but I take naps in the woods. It's a peaceful, safe haven. But I took more as a kid. But taking a nap, my dad's, sitting a yard away from me, and I get a tap on the shoulder to say, hey, there's deer coming. Get your gun up. And get my gun up, and it turned out to be a pretty nice one. I see a nice rack, probably the biggest buck that I've seen in the woods to this date. But anyways, end up rushing the shot and took some bark off the tree. The deer ran off, and we heard some gunshots shortly after on the other side of the hill. So I was defeated. My opportunity to make my dad proud, get a really big buck, have some bragging rights. There it was right in front of me. But, I was a little trigger happy, a little inexperienced, didn't
Mm-hmm.
take my time, and I rushed a bad shot. Anyways, I think we hung out for another half hour, and then we moped back to the cabin where it was nice and warm. So we warmed up for a little bit, and I think that fueled me a little bit. I was motivated to get back out in the woods and maybe see that buck again, or, have that opportunity. So we went up, and I remember the mist started to pick up, a little bit of a sleet. And my dad suggested that, wise man, he knew the other side was sunny, so we went over there. The wind wasn't blowing, it was calm, and it was like clockwork. It was half hour from once we got set up, this real big spike. No, it was just a small one, but it came walking through, and I took my time with the shot. I pulled the trigger, it dropped, rolled down that mountain about 100 yards. It's pretty steep up where we're at, and we'll get into stories later about future kills over there. But
Sure. Yeah.
but then, being thrilled that, I did it. I did it with my dad present, and it was, my first ones. I finally accomplished that. So then we spent about 3 hours getting it processed and dragged up and to the meat pole. Getting to the tippy top from the backside was tough. Downhill was a breeze.
Yeah. Yeah. I can speak from experience on that particular hunting land. Dragging them up from the backside. We will tell you some stories about that, and and maybe some future episodes we can talk about shooting those small deer or letting them pass, because I'm sure there's the whole community of hunters out there. We all have our opinions on letting them walk, and that's how you grow big deer. But you know what? There's no shame in taking a small deer.
No.
If that's your trophy, some guys don't have time to put a month's worth of hunting in. You got a weekend that you got off of work or something like that. You take a day off of work, and if you have that opportunity, those small deer, they taste just as good, sometimes better than the old ones. So love hearing that story.
Yeah, it's a very memorable one of many that I won't forget, and that I can share with others and share with those that were there. What's a memorable story for you?
Well, it's like you said, there's so many memories, and what's really important is that time spent with family. You can't recreate those moments. And so, I think of when I go back to my first deer that I shot, it wasn't a buck, it was a doe, and it was on the run, and I thought I had missed it. And I guess this is a memorable moment, so I started telling it. I might as well tell the story, but I was walking one of those logging roads. I was cold. I saw this doe like cruising, and she wasn't just trotting. She was like Mach 5, maybe 3 feet off the ground, and she was moving. And I was hunting with a 30-06, and I pulled up and I led the bead on her, put it out in front, and I fired off, and she kept on running. I thought, oh, I missed. So, I walked down to where the shot was, and just to see if there was any blood or anything, and wasn't a whole lot of blood, and I was defeated. But there's just white stuff all over the place, and so when my hunting partner came out, and my mentor showed me. He said, "Where did you shoot that deer?" He said that was the white hair from the belly of the deer. So my first successful hunt was a gut shot, and I learned really fast how awful that is, And so shot placement, taking ethical shots, those type of things were so important. But that's how you learn.
Yeah.
You learn from making mistakes, doing the wrong thing. That's why I love archery hunting so much, because frankly, it's harder than rifle hunting.
I agree.
Have those deer come within range, and you got to beat their nose and scent control, etc. It's a deeper challenge, but it's far more rewarding. So yeah, I'd say that would be like one of my greatest memories. And a lot of the memories aren't tied to the hunt itself, but it's tied to the stories of the trips to the camp.
Yeah.
Playing cards, staying up late, getting up early. All those memories are really important. So really appreciate story sharing with you today. I know that we're going to have a lot of more fun on up and coming episodes, but this is just a little introduction into who we are. We appreciate you, hunting family, for joining us today. We ask you to subscribe to Tracks and Tackle, or give us a 5-star rating. We're looking forward to sharing more episodes filled with captivating stories. I wouldn't say expert insights, but the guys that we have, we're going to give you some insights. And we're just like you. We're no different than you. So you can follow us on socials at Menser Outdoors. And we'll share with you in the upcoming episodes maybe a little bit about how we got started filming and posting our content. And it's really been a pleasure hanging out with you today.
Yeah, Air Eagle, beyond excited. We'll dive in, keep sharing these stories about how wonderful, the fishing, hunting, and outdoors world is, and excited to share it with our audience, and long term, hopefully bring someone out away from their phone and away from their comfortable living room watching TV to, hey, I want to try something different. I want to try something fun and challenging. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure, and look forward to where we go with this.
All right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Our goal with Tracks and Tackle is going to be to create community of outdoor enthusiasts who can come together to celebrate and learn from each other. I know I learn a lot from you. I'm sure that you learn from me as a master teacher of the fine arts of being a woodsman. I jest, but we all have valuable tips that can enhance one another's outdoor pursuits. So with that, hunting family, thanks for tuning in. Check in with us next time, and be safe. Happy hunting.